welcome to Drinking with Dana. It's so good to see all of you out there. I'm a little out of practice now. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but it's so good to have you here for this one. Saying hi especially to Winter Vespers, Scott, Darth Christoph, Morning Wind, and and especially to This is Radar. Good to see you. I'm glad you could make it. Oh, and Repentant Imp, if I didn't say there. Thank you. Repentant Imp says pretty dress, and thank you. It's a thrift store find, and I think I really like it. Just a second here. Yes, beautiful?
I still see, thanks for joining us, and the surf music.
Okay, by the way, no, everyone's commenting on my dress and hair, so...
Okay, well then, I'm all messed up. Hello, everybody, bye-bye.
Thank you, Morning Wind, who says I look beautiful and that she loves my dress and hair. Thank you. I'm trying a little something different with the hair. Just thought I'd dress up a little bit for this one, which I'll explain in a bit. Once, I think let's fix a drink first and give some more people time to show up, just so we don't have to repeat it a lot. But thank you all for being here. It is so good to have you. So let's just go straight into the first drink. Here we go. And the first drink tonight is going all the way back to the very beginning with an old-fashioned. There are arguments to be made that this is the first cocktail ever made, and it's actually the drink that the cocktail was defined by, or the term cocktail was defined by. So let me grab my notes here, because all of them tonight have a lot of notes, so I'm sorry about that. Food, not so much, but the drinks both do. Also, sorry I don't have a non-alcoholic drink tonight. There were a couple I really wanted to get in here, and so maybe next time we'll get to one. All right. So the first example of a old-fashioned, or something that would look like that. Let's see. Actually, first let's read it here. All right. Darth Christoph says, when I want to feel like a grown-up drinker, the old-fashioned is my poison. Repentant Imp says, oh, I love old-fashions. And so people are saying, hi, Lori. So yes, it was actually one of my mom's drinks of choice before I started introducing her to a few other things. And I'll actually talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, the first example of something that could be even sort of called an old-fashioned was invented in 1690, so very old-fashioned, in Great Britain with Dr. Richard Stoughton's Elixir Magnum Stomachum, which was basically, it was a little vial of what today we would call bitters. It was basically when bitters were invented. And it was recommended to be mixed with brandy or wine for a hangover cure. And that was sort of, I do have it up there. An old fashioned, you can see, is basically rye and, basically a spirit with bitters and a little bit of sugar and a garnish. And that's about it. So that could be said to be the beginning of it. But in 1806, the Balance and Columbian Repository newspaper defined the term cocktail, 2 words, as a concoction of spirits, bitters, water, and sugar. Again, getting pretty darn, and that's essentially what it is, because when this style of drink was first made, it was sugar muddled with a little bit of water to dissolve it. Now, the first use of the term cocktail with its modern usage was in a newsletter called The Farmer's Cabinet in 1803, but it wasn't, that kind of cocktail wasn't necessarily alcoholic. It was just, it was a concoction, really. Let's see. After that, people started changing. All right, so 1806, we have the basic form of what we now call an old-fashioned, but it was just called a cocktail at that point. By the way, Greg on How to Drink has done several videos on old fashions. He's done one where he makes one of each era of cocktail and goes really deep into the history. I recommend you watch that video. I'll try and remember to put a link in the in the comments of the YouTube version of this. But yeah, so anyway, but basically, so the cocktail has been invented, and then of course people start making changes to it almost immediately, uh, before the ink is dry. So all sorts of new cocktails are made. In 1862, Jerry Thomas put a fairly modern version of this cocktail in his book as a whiskey cocktail. So it's changed from brandy or wine or literally just any spirit, now specifically to whiskey. And in 1880, the Chicago Daily Tribune referred to them as old-fashioned cocktails. And in 1895, George Kapler included an old-fashioned whiskey cocktail recipe in his book Modern American Drinks. All of this that I've just said is completely disputed. There are all sorts of different histories, and if you watch Greg's video, he'll say, "No, that's not true. It wasn't invented until blah blah blah. It wasn't the first cocktail," and so on. So back then, people weren't exactly writing all this down thinking that it would be needed for the historical record by bartenders and cocktail historians and so on in the future. But, and also, all that is a little bit relevant. I just wanted you to know kind of where this comes from. This could be the first cocktail, it couldn't. At the very least, it's a very old cocktail, and one of the fundamental ones that you want to have in your back pocket if you want to learn how to make drinks. So, like I said, there are a bunch of different varieties. Even back in the 1800s, every tavern you went to would have your own, the bartender would make it their way. In the mid-century version, so 50s, actually more like 60s and 70s, they would put an entire wedge of an orange and a couple of maraschino cherries and muddle that all up, and then make it pretty much the same way, but it basically just tastes like orange juice at that point because you're completely overwhelming the spirits and so on. This is all right. What I'm going to show you, and the recipe I have up there, is the way I like to make them. I mentioned that this was one of my mom's favorite drinks. She liked to substitute the simple syrup with the juice from maraschino cherry bottle and use cherries as the garnish instead of orange peel. I think you're getting out of old-fashioned territory. But it's perfectly valid if that's the drink you like. What the drink she liked. It's not the version I like. And you've probably heard that you're supposed to take a sugar cube, soak it in bitters, and then maybe add a little water, or definitely add your spirit to it. And then the sugar cube will dissolve, and you stir it around, and the thing is the sugar never dissolves, and if you're adding sugar or water to your sugar cube, you're just making simple syrup anyway. So I just use simple syrup. It's the easier way to do it, and you don't get a bunch of undissolved sugar in your drink. So all right, this is a drink you build in your glass, and I am going to start off by taking a nice big cube of ice here. Made some fresh yesterday, and it already has some crystals on the top, but hopefully it fits in this glass. All right, so let's see. Here we go. And I try and build these from cheapest to most expensive ingredients. I didn't do that here because I didn't think of it. Again, I'm out of practice. So we're just going to start off, here we go, with my simple syrup, if I can get this open. That was the other thing I forgot to do before the show. Come on. Why are you doing this to me? All right. I'm just going to open this up because I was not clever enough to get rid of the sugar crystals before the show. There are a lot of stages to putting on one of these shows. Stage number 37 is getting the sugar crystals off of the simple syrup container. All right, so it's about, it's a little more than a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, but in it goes. Now I'm going to go ahead, see I'm kind of building this from the bottom up, 2 dashes of bitters. And normally you'd use Angostura bitters. I'm using orange bitters because I happen to like them in this. I think it makes the drink a little more interesting, a little more approachable. But again, Angostura is traditional. Use that if you have it and like it. If you want to try other bitters, you certainly can. Sort of like with the Manhattan, you use whatever bitters you find interesting. And experiment a little bit, see what you like. I'm now about to add 2 ounces of bourbon. I like bourbon in my old fashions, and I'm using Jim Beam Black, literally because this is the bottle of bourbon I took from my dad's place after he passed. So I figured it would be, good tribute to him. All right. 1 ounce, and there we go, 2 ounces. Now we are going to stir that up. A little bit. Put this out of the way so you can see. And you're cooling everything down, but you're also mixing that simple syrup in, because otherwise it will just sit on the bottom and not sweeten your drink appropriately. All right, and then finally, we're going to take a nice, long, fat orange peel. Well, I'm not sure how fat it's going to be, but a nice long one. Oh, there it goes. Caught it before it fell to the ground. All right. Now, again, if you're trying to be extra fancy, you can get a match. Strike a match and then spray the oils from the from the orange through the flame. And it's very impressive for company, and it gives a slight caramelized or slight smoky flavor to the drink. I'm not going to do that because I've never gotten it to work successfully. If you have, my hat's off to you. But also, I think it's more work than you need, because the idea is this is a nice, simple drink that you can make easily and quickly without a lot of ingredients, without a lot of work, and it's really tasty. So, first of all, cheers to all of you. Thank you for being here tonight and every night that you've been here. Let's see. Scott says, simple. What's the taste difference between rye and bourbon? Rye tends to be a little bit harsher and a little less smooth, and also a little less sweet. Literally, the difference is the grains that they're made with, and I believe the aging process. But bourbon tends to be a little bit sweeter and a little bit smoother. Rye is known for being sort of rough. Traditionally it's rough, cheap booze. These days it's rough, expensive booze, but it's still a little rougher. I used to love my Manhattans with rye, but I've switched those to either straight whiskey or occasionally bourbon. Rye is amazing in whiskey sours, though. Let's see. Morning Wind says, that dispenser reminds me of my childhood and pancake houses, restaurants. And Winter Vespers agrees. Yes, it's actually, Lori got that for us for simple syrup because she is a big sweet tea fanatic. and wanted to have something to, have a good supply of simple syrup always on hand for her sweet tea, and found this, and it's brilliant. Well, when I don't let it crystallize over. Let's see. All right. Cheers. Yes. It's amazingly smooth. The sugar takes off any remaining rough edges that the whiskey might have had. You know you're drinking booze, though. You know there's no hiding the alcohol in this. It is very spirit forward, which means it's going to, the better alcohol you use, the better it's going to taste. And I don't mean that in terms of cost, but in terms of what you like. So if you have a whiskey that you really like for this sort of thing, or that you really like in general, give it a try. I think that you'll find this is just a really pleasant drink to have, just to sip on for a good long time. And as folks say, it is traditionally it makes you feel like an adult. This is a real serious drink. Same way a Manhattan is, same way a martini is. It's one of the classic solid foundational drinks of bartending. And like I say, there is room to show the bartender's skill in addition to showing off the ingredients. And I shouldn't say skill. I should say style. Like I say, I do this with orange and orange bitters. I may have put a little too much simple syrup in there, but I don't mind. Other folks might do this with a cherry. Other folks might do this with a little less syrup and, different combinations of things. So no two old fashions are really going to taste exactly the same. If you get a cheap old fashioned and happy hour at a dive bar, it's not going to be the same as, one made with good ingredients and love. So I shouldn't denigrate dive bars that way. They hold a very important place in the world. One other fun fact: you can sub out the simple syrup for maple syrup, and I've seen places call that a northern exposure or other names for it. But I've also seen people say an old fashioned with maple syrup. So give that a try sometime. Let's see. Darth Christoph says, that's why it's my grown-up beverage. I had one at Gen Con in 2022, and it was halfway to done. Was halfway to done. Yeah, it is a solid drink. Also, in addition to, not being able to hide the booze, it's, this is 2 ounces of 40 proof bourbon. You're not gonna, it's gonna leave a mark, for lack of a better term. All right, so I think most folks are here who are going to be here, so I'll get into the news for the show, which I think most of you either just flat out know or have figured out by now. Unrestray 5? Unrestrays? Oh, that's a bot. Dang it. All right, there we go. So after that rude interruption, this is probably going to be the last Drinking with Dana for the foreseeable future, for a lot of reasons. I'm not saying it's the last one ever. I'm just saying I need to take a break from doing a regular show for a while. And like I said, there are a lot of reasons for it, but they all kind of add up to the fact that for the past, I want to say 6 months to a year, I've been not looking forward to the shows. And that's not phrased right. Because when I actually do the shows and I see all of you and I get to chat with all of you, it's amazing. It's a blast. But I'll often go into, the week before the show and be like, oh crap, I have to put on a show this week. Not, oh good, I get to put on a show. And that's not the energy I want to bring to this. I want to bring the best for you all, and I don't feel like I've been able to do that. I haven't really had the energy or I don't want to say the interest, but it felt like the last several shows have been pretty forced. And I think folks have kind of felt that. The audience numbers, well, they certainly haven't grown very much in a long time. I've got to get new followers, like one or two here and there, but not. I don't. We haven't really grown, and the show hasn't really caught on all that much. And Ska says, "We love you, Dana," with lots of hand hearts there, and I appreciate it. And Morning Wind agrees. Repentant says, "You're looking after yourself. I admire your personal insight." Thank you all. I do appreciate that. And I know you have all told me in so many ways how much you care for me, how much you care for the show. And that's why when I'm here, it's amazing. It's always a blast. There's always I have to do some aftercare after the show, because it is such a letdown to have to just be myself again instead of, the star of Drinking with Dana. I kid, of course. Winter Vesper says, "I'm glad you are doing what will make you happy. At the same time, I've enjoyed these evenings and will miss it." I know, and I honestly, if I didn't know at least 90% of you on other social media and other places, I would have to have thought a lot harder about this. When I first started doing this a couple of years ago, I know that there were some of you out there had just come out or didn't really have much of a community. Seeing you all grow and find that community has been amazing, and I am so proud to have offered you a respite from the storm a little bit in here. And on that note, actually, I am thinking about doing some pop-up shows here and there. I think, for example, on election night, we could all use a drink. So there will probably be an election night special if I can brace myself for it. There may be a show on the anniversary of Drinking with Dana. Who knows? But it's just not going to be regular for a while. And I'll post on all the usual places if it's going to happen. So anyway, that's all I want to say. Thank you for being here for, the last regular show for at least a while. You've all made the show at least as much as I have. I've said it before several times that, I would have stopped the show several times in the past if if people hadn't come up to me and told me how much it meant to them and how important it was to them. And I just want to say thank you for that. You kept me from succumbing to ADHD a little bit. All right, and I'm tearing up now, so stupid sexy estrogen. All right, so I'm going to put this away, and we're going to start on the food and get that done. So, and I'm happy to talk more about this if you're interested. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer, but heck, if you have suggestions for other events that we could do pop-up shows for. But all right. So this next one. Darth Christoph says, I almost did a spit take. Okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to give folks warning about it as much as I could, but yeah, there's only so much you can do, and I wanted to be able to explain to everyone what was going on. So, all right. So let me plug this in. Make sure it's turned off there. All right. Oh. Oh, Darth Christoph says, I meant that stupid sexy estrogen caught me just as I was finishing a sip. Sorry about that. It's a saying some friends of mine have taken to using. Accurate, too. Okay. So, food. Fancy Franks. This one, there's not a page of notes on, so let's go to it. Basically, in the last month and a half, I have not had a ton of time to go through my mom's recipe boxes, and I say that as a plural, that she has at least, or had, I should say, at least 3 long recipe boxes that are filled double width with recipe cards, in addition to all the cookbooks I got from her and all that. I of course went through the appetizer stuff first, and I found this, which is a recipe that she used to make a lot when I was growing up, for parties and things. She made it a few times recently too, before she passed, which kind of reminded me of it, and I couldn't believe that I hadn't remembered this when I think I've mentioned that I'm putting together a recipe book for my nephews, and I hadn't remembered to put this in, but it was one of her go-to party recipes, so I'm going to do it. I also unfortunately realized I had never made it myself because I didn't have the recipe until I got her recipe book, or recipe folders, or boxes. That's the word I'm looking for. So we're going to make it together. I know it's good the way she made it. We'll hope that it's good the way I make it. Couple of cautions though. This is really only good hot, or it's best hot, but I don't know. I don't think I've ever had it not hot, unless it was like leftovers out of the fridge, and even then you might want to I remember heating it up. So a really good thing to have on hand is a fondue pot or chafing dish. Fondue pots are great because you can make fondue in them, but you can also use them as, portable chafing dishes. They are all set up in case someone trips over them because you don't want scalding hot oil all over people. This is actually my mom's fondue pot, so I'm going to actually make it in here. You can see it's just a little pot with a burner built in, or built with it. So let's get right. One last thing though. Normally for party food, I recommend finger food, and ideally stuff that doesn't have a lot of sauces. Just because you don't want people dripping sauce on your sofa and all over your floors and on your cat. This might be better for like a buffet style dinner or something like that, where they're already going to have non-finger foods anyway. But that taken into account, let's see. All right, things have settled down to Simpsons jokes in the chat. Morning Wind does say, this looks delicious. And Scott says it's a sit-down type food. Yes, I think so. I mean, you can, if I remember correctly, the recipe said that you should serve it with toothpicks, and the way to do that was to take a quarter of was it lemon? Let's see, do I have that written down? I didn't write down, but it said cut a quarter of a lime and stick all the toothpicks into that, and then people would just pick out the toothpicks for serving. And that's not ideal because you're going to waste a lot of toothpicks at the end of the day, but also they don't really stay well on that. You could go for cocktail forks, or you could use a slotted spoon to get the franks out and onto a plate. So, all right, we're going to start with a quarter cup or half cup of chili sauce, and what we're going to do here is we're going to take the first 4 ingredients there and just put them all in the pot. So let's see. Can you see what I'm doing here? Let me switch sides a little bit. All right. And I'm using up a bottle of my chili sauce here. Nothing extra fancy. I just got it at Safeway. Right. Put this down here for you. And open this up. Being attacked. And if you're having problems getting your chili sauce out of the bottle, just let it warm up to room temperature. Oh, come on. There we go. All right. I'm gonna grab a paper towel to set my spatula on. All right, now here. Excuse me. I'm going to. Well, I should use a half cup of currant jelly. However, earlier today I went to 5 different stores and found a little spot on the shelf marked currant jelly and no jars of jelly there. And then the next 4 did not have any even sign of jelly, of currant jelly. So we're using raspberry jelly, which should be just as good. It is a substitute for currant jelly. I recall currant jelly being easier to find, but apparently that's changed. Or maybe it's more of a winter thing and they're switching over to spring stock at the grocery store or something. I don't know. Anyway, this is very fancy Bon Maman raspberry preserves, a product of France. The real big difference here is that this has seeds in it, and because I bought it at the last place I went instead of the place that actually had seedless raspberry preserves, because hope springs eternal, and unfortunately did not work out for me. All right, so that is about half cup there. All right. So now I've washed my hands off because they're covered with chili sauce and jam. And then we, let's see, need a tablespoon and a half of lemon juice. So let me grab the lemon I had out for the next drink. And I'll cut that in half. I'm going to just squeeze it into a little dish here because it's easier. When I'm making drinks, I normally squeeze it into a measuring cup, and sometimes, I'll be honest, when I'm doing it, making recipes like this for myself, I sometimes just measure directly into the measuring spoon, but it takes a little longer and is not necessarily pretty. All right, so a tablespoon and a half is 1 tablespoon with no seeds in it. That is the downside of doing it this way. So 1, and then a teaspoon. And then a half a teaspoon. And this isn't, I've been a little bit short on all those, so I'm just going to add a little extra. And finally, a teaspoon and a half of prepared mustard, which is right here. And I'm going to shake it up. All right, I'm also going to turn on this just to low for right now, just to get it started heating up. All right, so teaspoon and a half. Oh, come on. There we go. And I'm just using yellow prepared mustard, classic yellow mustard, French's, because I figured that's probably what my mom used when she first got this recipe sometime in the 50s or 60s. All right. All right. So, now I'm going to mix all of that together. I got everything there. And it's going to start heating up. I actually turn up a little bit higher than low. But you don't want it to, you want it to get up to a simmer. And no, you don't want it to really seriously boil. That mustard is strong in here. I'm wondering if a little extra vinegar. Ooh. I'm hearing it starting to sizzle a little bit. So I'm going to turn it back down to low. All right. So, next thing we're going to add, now that we've got all that mixed in there, is, well, we add the Franks and the pineapple next. I'm going to add the pineapple because it's going to be a little longer to prepare that. I'm actually going to have to weigh it out because this recipe calls for 13 and a half ounces of canned pineapple chunks drained, and the closest I could find was 15 and a quarter ounce. And I'm not sure if that is the weight of the pineapple. It's packed in 100% juice, so maybe it contains some of the weight of the juice. We'll find out. All right, but Morning Wind says yellow or brown mustard. I already answered that one. And Scott says that's a good one. I like to mix it with plain yogurt. I'm guessing you mean the chili sauce. Yeah, it's so at the store when I went there, they had this stuff, Panda Express, and the store brand. So it seems like the best one that was readily available. Not that we don't have a ton of Asian grocery stores around here, but I wanted to go with something accessible, and it matched what the partial bottle I already had in my fridge. So, all right. So let's see how much this weighs. First, turn my scale on. Oh, come on. There we go. little extra juice here that I didn't get out. Okay. So this actually ends up, once you get all of the juice out, being 11.8 ounces, which I think is close enough, but just know that for your own knowledge. Now, I'm going to use my hand to put this in because I don't want to get the rest of that juice dumped in. Well, I may save that for something else later. All right. And the last thing I'm going to add is the titular Franks. So, these are just Hillshire Farm Little Smokies. So, if you're worried about things not being labeled as cocktail weenies, or cocktail wieners, or sausages, or whatever you want to call them, they don't really call them that. Well, I think it's a regional naming convention, but Little Smokies and all those kinds of things are the same thing. I looked it up online just to make sure because I couldn't quite remember. And yes, there's about 8 different names that all mean the same thing. So I wouldn't go for the ones you can get that have cheese in there. But Scott says it was the jam, not the sweet chili sauce that she mixed with plain yogurt. So good. That sounds like a good dish. All right, I'm just gonna cut these open, trying not to skew the wieners. Make your own joke there. All right. So, and then I'm just gonna start getting them out of the package and dumping them in. All right, so if you look at the pan at this point, it's a bunch of stuff sitting on top of the sauce. So I'm going to stir that all together and make sure that the everything is coated. And then we are going to want to let this simmer for 15 minutes. All right. And that will help the sauce to thicken as well. The nice thing also about having a little fondue pot for this kind of thing, or chafing dish and all that, you can literally just turn it on and do other things while it sits where it's supposed to sit on the table. The only problem, so the one problem with using fondue pots for this is they have a fairly narrow temperature range that you want to use. Usually they are designed to get things a lot hotter than just stay warm. The low or warm setting is usually pretty good. Anything higher than that, and I have turned this up just a little bit above low, and it immediately starts simmering and boiling and making noises. So I'm going to turn up just a little bit because I do want it to actually reach a simmer. Also, make sure there wasn't just something on the... I suspect I may have gotten something on the bottom of this. Honestly, I'm not sure I think I've used it since I brought it home. Let's just wipe this all off just to make sure nothing is, in fact, burning on here. Also, kids at home, if you're watching, this is a do as I say, not as I do moment. Do not do this. Yeah, there was something on here. I'm going to turn this off. Avert your eyes for a minute, folks. Yeah. That smells like burnt hot dog. Probably from when my mom made this the Christmas before she passed. All right. Again, Do not do this at home. I'm a trained professional idiot. All right, let's give that a try. See if it will go without. So basically, there was stuff between the pan and the burner. So always make sure it's clean before you start. All right. And I'm going to leave the lid off for right now. So like I say, I want that to condense down and thicken up a little bit. All right. So, with that done, important note about the Old Fashioned. As the ice melts, it's going to become a less intense drink. Also, that orange peel has been in there a little longer, so it's got more of the orange flavor. The bourbon is definitely still present, but it is a little diluted down now. All right. So, while we wait for that to go, and I'm going to go ahead and, well, it hasn't actually started simmering yet, so I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit and clean this up. This I want to rinse out before putting it in the recycling bin. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to be making tonight is, all right, you may have noticed a little bit of a theme. The first thing was a drink my dad used to make for my mom. This recipe for the food is something my mom used to make for other folks. This last one is all me. This is a recipe I got for a Christmas party, and let me tell you the whole story here before we get into it. Basically, there's a bar nearby in Seattle called Cannon, and it is amazing. The bartenders there are some of the best in the world. Like, they've been in competitions and won. Just absolutely fantastic. And the first time I went, actually, I was invited because, well, I don't think it's the only reason, but I was invited because my friend wanted to order a bowl of punch there, and they only served a minimum of 4 people. But they'd bring a punch bowl out to your table with little glasses for everyone, and it was amazingly fun. And so, for my Christmas party, I thought I would make a big bowl of punch and just set it out, and people could serve themselves, and it'd be a blast. Got my mom's old punch bowl, which gorgeous punch bowl, set it up, and looked for a recipe for punch. And this is what I found. All right, this has just started to simmer now, by the way, so I'm going to turn on the timer. So, Fish House Punch. I'm going to show it to you 3 different ways. So now I can make a giant bowl of punch. This was the recipe that I originally found. And you'll notice that it is a very large batch. I'll talk a little bit more about the recipe in just a second. But so from there, I found a few different recipes for Fish House Punch. But this was the one that I latched onto because it came with this story, which is, I didn't get the full name of the person who wrote in, but Mr. Willing is the name that I have. And he writes, this originated in 1848 by Shippen Willing of Philadelphia, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, given to me by my father of the same name, invented to celebrate the momentous occasion of women being allowed into the premises of the Fish House for the first time in order to enliven the annual Christmas party. The Fish House was a club for gentlemen where they could basically relax without their wives being around. The Fish House was an august gentleman's society devoted to escaping Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt myself. Society devoted to escaping domestic tribulation, also cigars, whiskey, and the occasional fishing foray upon the Chesapeake or the Restigouche River in Nova Scotia. Great-great-great-great-grandpa was delighted to concoct something to please the ladies' palate, but get them livelier than is their usual wont. Mission accomplished, as is attested by the society pages of the time, specifically the Philadelphia Inquirer. And there's a poem that goes along with it, which is Fish House Punch. There's a little place just out of town where if you go to lunch, they'll make you forget your mother-in-law with a drink called Fish House Punch. So that's kind of the level we're working at here. Fortunately, the drink itself is delicious. It is, however, very, very, very dangerous. So, let me walk through the original recipe and I'll tell you how I modified it. And I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. And also stir it up a little bit. I've already put my spoon in there, so here. So, first of all, it calls for 30 limes and 15 lemons. I mean, obviously they're making a batch for an army. Effectively, every member of the club is going to be pouring out of this, so you want a nice big batch. I'm just going to leave the spoon in there for right now. But you take those 30 limes and cut them in half, squeeze them. 15 lemons, same as above. They actually say on the version I got this from that if you get some pulp in there, that's fine. It's not going to bother anyone. So, but you take all that juice, you measure how much it is, and that's 1 part. So if you have, say, a quart of that, 1 part is 1 quart. So to that, you add 1 part of dark rum, so 1 part, 2 parts of light rum, 1 part of brandy, 1 part of brown sugar, and then 1 part of water as an ice block. You may notice it's basically 4 parts of booze to 1 part of fruit juice and 1 part of water in the form of ice. This is excessive, in my opinion. I actually tried making it that way the first year, just as a practice run as well. And this is really boiling now, so I'm going to turn it down. Is that off? There we go. Just turn it down to low. Anyway, I tried making that and it was way too much. So what I ended up doing is, so that's the original recipe. This is my version of the punch. And let me get to this here. My notes. I told you I had a lot of notes this week. All right. So basically, the night before you're planning on making this punch, fill basically 2 3/4 cups, or just those little Tupperware containers full of water, and freeze them. You want 3 of those. And I used the juice of 3 lemons and 6 limes, because I don't know if the ones they had back then were smaller or just had less juice in them, but the ones we get up here have a lot more juice, and this is going to be enough to serve to have 20 servings of it, more or less. And in my experience, that is more than enough for about a 20 to 30 person party. So the rest of it, the brown sugar, the light rum, the dark rum, the brandy, that's all the same. You still measure out how much juice you got, use that as 1 part, and then go from there. I find that it makes about 16 ounces of juice with that, but that your mileage may vary. But then what you want to do, and I didn't really mention for the last one because Anyway, you want to make this in the morning before the party, and you put it in your punch bowl, and add, basically put the sugar in, add the juice, mix until the brown sugar is thoroughly wetted, basically meaning it's wet even if it hasn't dissolved yet. And then you add all the alcohol, stir it to combine, cover the punch bowl with plastic wrap, and let it set for at least 4 and preferably 8 hours. That will dissolve all the brown sugar and let all the flavors really combine. And about every hour or so, you want to stir it up. And then about an hour before you're planning on serving it, you add the first block of ice. You add in, don't just plop it in, just slide it in gently. Then, using a ladle, stir it all up again. Pour some of the punch over the ice every so often, about every 10 minutes or so, until it's either dissolved or melted, or it's time to serve the punch. When it's time, add the second block of ice. This is very important. The more water you're adding to this, the less likely you are to overdo it. This is a very strong drink. I cannot reiterate that enough. I have friends who are very, I don't want to say heavy drinkers, but they are not exactly what you'd call lightweights. And the first time I served this, they had about 2 cups of it without adding any ice to it, and it knocked them on their butts. So, and these are the tiny little punch cups. Not a big mug, not a big glass, tiny little punch cups. I recommend when you are serving it, have an ice bucket there and encourage people to put a couple of things of ice into their glass. And then ladle some of the punch in over the top of that. So, adding that, I said make 3 blocks of ice. That third one is optional after the second one has melted. And that's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to keep the punch cold. But it's also going to continue to dilute things as the party goes on. And that's kind of the direction you want to go. You want to, if you start strong, you want to end up a little bit lighter. Was it liquor before beer, never fear? Beer before liquor, never sicker? So you want to lighten things up as time goes on. And trust me, the flavor is not going to be diluted down. This is a very strong punch, both in terms of alcohol, but also in terms of flavors. So that's what happens if you want to make a full punch bowl of this. But you're not going to need to do that very often. I used to make one a year when I was still throwing Christmas parties. Darth Christoph says, beer before liquor, kill a fella. Liquor before beer, friend Jack. I'm not sure I get that one, but I'm interested to learn. All right. So that's, I've shown you the historical version. I've shown you my version of basically the modern version of the punch. Now I'm going to show you the single serving version, which I actually just kind of came up with for this show. But it is pretty much identical to the last 2. Let's see, another 5 minutes on that. So this is the single serving version, pretty much the same, except I'm going to make it in a shaker. All right, Darth Christoph says, red touches yellow or red touches black is how you tell a venomous coral snake from a non-venomous king snake. Ah, okay. I did not know that. I live in Western Washington where there are 2 venomous spiders. I think there are some black widows around, but I have never ever seen one. I've lived here, basically for 50 years. And then the other one is the brown recluse, which actively avoids people. So I actually have a little bit of a phobia about venomous creatures because I've never had to deal with them, and I don't want to. All right. So let's gather things up, and we can go over the single serving version of Fish House Punch. Glass. I will warn you that when I made this the other day, it was not the prettiest drink. And part of it is that I'm using a very dark rum and golden rum. I think that if I used lighter colored spirits, it would be a little more appealing, but this is going to be a sort of glass of brown liquid with ice in it. So Darth Christoph says, I have seen 1 or 2 coral snakes in my yard, but they're small and want to be left alone. Yeah, that is ideal. They avoid you. All right. So I'm going to add a ½ ounce of lemon juice. And my reasoning here was that, you had twice as many lemons as limes, twice as many limes as lemons, but limes are smaller and produce less juice. So we want to have basically a 50-50 ratio of the juices. And if we just decide what one part is going to be, and we decide that that's roughly an ounce, that is going to be okay. That's going to be about right. All right. So that is ½ an ounce of lemon juice. And cut up a lime. And, I have this also that you can't see what I'm doing, as usual. So let me move things back so you can. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're going to go for a ½ ounce of lime juice, just to even that up. And you can adjust the ratio to whatever you like. This is what works for me. Did I get that about right? Yeah, that's about right. All right, so that is 1 ounce. We now have 1 part of our fruit juice. Now, you may ask what 1 ounce of brown sugar is. It is 2 tablespoons. So, and because I used my other spoons and they're in the sink right now, grab this. And there we go. And again, you always want to pack down brown sugar. Even it out. Nice flat on there. Okay. So that's 1 in there. I'm going to turn off the timer. That just means that our franks are ready. And I will get to those in just a minute. Actually, I'm going to turn this down to low now and put the lid on. Well, sort of, with the spoon sticking in there. There. All right, so that's 2 tablespoons. All right, and now the booze. And I will admit that I'm going to be leaving you all alone for quite some time. I wanted to leave you with a nice stiff drink to bide our time until I get back. So, 1 ounce light rum. You can use silver rum or gold rum. I think gold rum has a little more flavor, but again, it's a darker color and will make this pretty brown and murky. But, I think that's fine. Trust me, after you drink this, you will not care. All right, so 1 ounce, which is again 1 part. But all right, There is a note, by the way, on the original recipe for this. It says, when it gets to the alcohol, it says, and use a good quality. These are your friends you're poisoning. So that should give you the mood that this should be drunk in. All right, 2 ounces of dark rum. I'm using my Old Lahaina, which, again, this is my last bottle of. I have to get out to Hawaii and get more, because that is the only place you can get it. Well, you can get it shipped, but it's pretty expensive to get it to the mainland. And I'm running out of people who go to Hawaii on a regular basis. All right, 2 ounces of the dark rum. And finally, 1 ounce of brandy. And I did at one point do the math on what the proof of this drink was, and it is not that far off from drinking just neat liquor. But the dangerous thing is that it does not taste like it has alcohol in it. So keep that in mind. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some crushed ice in here, and then I will put both crushed and regular ice in here. And then I will shake it all up. Excuse me here. All right. Here, I'll do it. Right. All right. So arguably I should put more crushed ice in here, but these are not very large rocks glasses. Arguably I should have used a bigger rocks glass and added more ice, but it is what it is. Repent says, oh no, have to go to Hawaii? I agree. Arguably, I should have kept doing the show and put that as a fundraising goal, but after the charity fund drive last year, I will hesitate. I think we'll make it there at some point, though. Then I'll do a Dana review things on the beach at some, and review all their tropical drinks. All right. I'm going to shake this extra long because I want a lot of dilution. Basically, any dilution I can get out of this. All right. Now we pour it into the glass. Now, as I said, it is not the most appealing looking drink. It is kind of a opaque, dark brown stuff. However, let's give it a taste. Okay, so the first taste you get is sweetened citrus juice. It is almost as sweet as orange juice because of all the brown sugar in there, but it is definitely lemon, lime. And then you get the molasses and the caramel flavors from the dark rum and the brown sugar, and it's just that sweet tart interplay on your tongue. And at no point do you get any alcohol burn. Do you get any notion that there's 4 ounces of alcohol in this? That it is mostly alcohol. It is just sweet and citrusy and caramely and really nice. This is dangerous stuff. And Morning Wind, you're right. Cheers to you all. Thank you for being here. This is. It tastes like a candy someone should come out with. And I know a lot of people, compare some certain drinks to candy and that they're oversweet or something like that. I don't think this is oversweet. I think this is exactly as sweet as it needs to be. Any less sweet, and it would be puckeringly tart. Um, it just cancels all the negatives that you could think out. Um, let's see. Winter Vesper says, in a dimly lit O'Neill Philadelphia Inn, the appearance may not matter so much after the third drink. Yeah, that has certainly been the case here. Now, I will say that when I make a big punch bowl of this, I do not use the old Lahaina, and I think I did use silver rum before, so it does not come out this dark with that. With I think I used Bacardi Black. I think 1 or 2 years I even used silver and gold rum instead of silver and dark rum, and it's still good. It's still very good. But you do get a little more of the tartness. You don't have as much complexity. And that's the thing. Even though you're not getting a huge, blast of rum in this, it is still definitely the quality of the booze does matter here. All those little notes filter to the top somehow. I don't know how they did it. I can't imagine that they just threw this together one night. There must have been a lot of experimentation to get it just so. Because I can't think of any other recipe like this. It's nothing like what do you call it? A final word, or the last word, sorry. It's nothing like, all the classic cocktails, like the old fashioned and the, martini and so on. It's, if anything, practically a tiki drink. I mean, it's a bunch of rum and a cup, another liquor, and then some fruit juice and some sugar, and call it a day. This is a tiki drink, and without the tiki, this is kind of a tiki drink, a century or two before its time. Scott says, it's sweet like me. Oh, well, thank you. That is very sweet of you to say. And I do, now that I've gotten this done, have to try it with the food for today. Let me show this to you. Stir it up a little bit here, because it does bubble up a little bit. There's a little bit of foam to it and all that. So when the little weenies went in, they were kind of crushed and flat. And again, make your own joke. But now they have plumped up. Again, make your own joke. They are delightful looking. So let's take some out. I should probably have done this a little earlier to let them cool. But I grabbed a couple pieces of pineapple here. So let's let it cool a little bit. Then we will give it a try. And I do have to say that temperature control with this sort of thing at a party can be tricky. I recommend just putting it on the lowest setting. Just keep it warm. Don't worry about keeping it hot. To be honest, just keeping it warm is good enough for 90% of things you're going to be working with. So here we go. So yes, that is pretty much what I remember. You don't get a ton from the chili, but it is definitely present. There is a little bit of spice to it and a little bit of flavor from it. The the sweetness from the jam, the flavor from the jam, the raspberry flavors there, but also the flavor from the pineapple. It's been cooked down. Um, I will say that I would probably. This is the kind of thing that's going to get left on the buffet table for several hours because that's how buffets work. And the sauce is going to cook down, and it's the more it cooks down, the more it's going to cling to the franks. And I think that is perhaps necessary because the ratio of sauce to, for lack of a better term, hot dog is it is a little off right now. You get a lot of that hot dog or a little smoky flavor. They're not as smoky as I was expecting. Maybe that's the brand or what have you. But I think that the sauce, maybe if you bite it in half, because I'm a dainty and delicate flower, and then soak up some more sauce with it. I think that's a little bit more ideal. But if you just pop the whole thing in your mouth like you feel like you should, then I think the ratio is a little bit off. Um, and it goes really well with the punch. So, which yet again, I think these are. I mean, the fancy franks are almost certainly from an era when tiki was popular, 50s, 60s, sometime and then. And definitely, it definitely dialed into that wavelength. The punch, I don't know how, but it is absolutely tiki drink. Like I say, just a century ahead of its time. This would not in any way, they would name it something else and it would be served at, Don the Beachcombers or Trader Vic's and they would have a fight over it. I absolutely adore both of them and they work really well together. Even though neither one is specifically, tiki or whatever you want to call that culture, or, designated as that kind of thing, they both work in that. Which is, I think, one of the points I tried to make along the course of the show, haltingly and awkwardly, is that if you could find a way to separate tiki culture, or I should say faux Polynesian, or I forget which other term I had for it that I'm supposed to be using, and if you could separate all of that from all the cultural baggage, I think there is a lot to be gained from it. I think there was a lot of amazing things done. Unfortunately, I don't think you can separate it from its cultural baggage. And so you have to always kind of acknowledge that is there while celebrating the good that it has, the artistic value that it has. I am not the right person, as always, to dive into the cultural implications of all this. But I'm just making the food. You can make the food if you feel that it's appropriate to make the food. I think it is, but just acknowledge where it came from and what the baggage is. And the pineapple's really good. So I think that's where we're going to end it for right now. Thank you all again for being here and supporting me and making this the show that it has been. I want to throw a special shout out to our anonymous benefactor, or I should say anonymous benefactors. They're anonymous. I don't know if there's more than one, or it could be that everyone's been donating all this time, but you have helped buy all the supplies for all the food and drinks that we've made on this show. Thank you all for being here and giving me support throughout the year and years, I should say. We've made, I think this is the 30th episode, and I That's about 10 times longer than I thought the show was going to go. I'm grateful to you, one and all, for being here and for everything you've done. Thank you. And also to all of our 49 viewers out on YouTube, thank you all. I appreciate you being there and watching the show. So let me close with some. Ska says thank you, Dana, with a lot of hearts and wings and emotes, and thank you so much, Ska. You've been here since the beginning, just about, and have always been incredible support. And Darth Christoph says, final for now, cheers. And cheers to you, Darth Christoph. Thank you for being here. And stay safe down in your Redneckistan. Do what you can to stay safe. Morning Wind says, thank you for such a wonderful time. Winter Vespers says, thank you ever so much for all these shows. Thank you both. You have been here also just about since the beginning and have been just incredible supporters of the show. I really appreciate you being here. I can't say it enough, all of you. Morning Wind says, take care, Lori. I'm sure she will. She's hiding. We just got back from a trip a couple of days ago, and she's still hiding in her office recovering spoons. Repentant says, I've enjoyed your show and getting to see you so much. It has been great to see you as well. We don't see each other as much as we used to, but it has been very nice whenever you've been able to tune in. Thank you as well. This is Radar. Just send some hearts, and it's so good to see you here, Radar. I'm sorry you're coming in on the last day, but I appreciate you being here, and I really I hope I get to see you more often. Excuse me. We're planning a trip to your neck of the woods sometime soon, so hopefully we get to hook up then. And I think on that note, we're going to call it here. Cheers, everyone. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you soon. Bye.